Most people believe that never giving up is a supreme virtue. They have been fed the lie that winners never quit. But the elite know a darker, more pragmatic truth. The most dangerous skill you can have is the inability to quit a mistake. You are staying in that toxic relationship, that dead-end job, and that failing project not because you believe in a brighter future, but because you are terrified of admitting that the past was a total waste. You are not loyal. You are a prisoner of your own history, trapped in a psychological cage where the bars are made of the years you've already lost. You are throwing your future after your past, hoping the math will eventually change through some miracle. It won't. This is the moment where you must stop and ask yourself if you are being brave or just being incredibly stubborn. Most people would rather die in a sinking ship than admit they chose the wrong ocean. You think your persistence is a shield, but it is actually the weight that is pulling you under. The elite don't wait for the ship to sink. They realize they are on the wrong vessel, and they jump before the water ever hits their knees. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the weight of the camel in his masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The camel carries whatever is loaded onto its back, thinking that the burden is a sign of its strength and nobility. But eventually, the weight of those burdens, the expectations, the traditions, and the failures, crushes the life out of the animal. Your sunk costs, the years of tuition, the tears shed in a broken marriage, and the effort poured into a hollow business, are the weights on your back. You think you are being strong by continuing to carry them, but you are actually being a slave to a ghost. The elite practice what Joseph Schumpeter called creative destruction. They are willing to burn their own history to save their future. They know that the cost of staying is always higher than the cost of leaving. There is a specific psychological identity trap that makes you feel like quitting a path is the same as deleting your own soul. You've built a monument to your pain, and now you're afraid to tear it down because you don't know who you are without it. Fyodor Dostoevsky, in his exploration of the human psyche, noted that the soul is healed by being with children, but it is destroyed by its own obsession with suffering. We cling to our mistakes because they have become our identity. If you stop being the person who is trying to save this business, then who are you? You are terrified of the void that comes after letting go. But the master knows that the void is where new worlds are built. Albert Camus, the father of absurdism, talked about Sisyphus, the man condemned to push a boulder up a mountain for eternity, only for it to roll back down. Most people are Sisyphus, but they are doing it voluntarily. They have fallen in love with the struggle because they are too afraid of the freedom that comes with walking away. They have turned their sunk cost into a religion. The federal defense trap. U.S. defense economists point to the F-35 program as the ultimate sunk cost. Despite being years behind schedule and billions over budget, the investment already made makes it politically impossible to cancel, locking the U.S. into a decades-long financial sinkhole. The zombie corporation epidemic. According to Bloomberg, nearly 20% of publicly traded companies in the U.S. are zombie firms, companies that don't earn enough to cover their interest payments and stay alive solely on credit and the sunk cost of their shareholders' hopes. The tuition fallacy. A study by the Federal Reserve suggests that millions of Americans remain in low-paying or soul-crushing careers simply because they feel their expensive $100,000 plus degrees would be wasted if they switched to a trade or a different sector. Venture capital, dry powder. In Silicon Valley, over $300 billion in dry powder or uninvested capital is often held back because firms realize that throwing good money after bad in existing failing startups is the #1 cause of VC bankruptcy. The real estate anchor. Data from the U.S. housing market shows that homeowners often refuse to sell a house in a declining neighborhood because they put $50,000 into the kitchen, even if keeping the house costs them $200,000 in lost market value over the next 5 years. Healthcare waste. The NIH, National Institutes of Health, estimates that billions are wasted annually on medical procedures that doctors know are ineffective but are performed because the patient or hospital has already invested so much in the initial treatment plan. Richard Thaler, the Nobel-winning economist who pioneered behavioral economics, proved that humans are fundamentally loss-averse. We feel the pain of losing $1,000 twice as intensely as the joy of gaining that same amount. When it comes to the sunk cost fallacy, we aren't just losing money, we are losing meaning. If you quit that 5-year project, you have to admit those 5 years are gone forever. So you spend 5 more years trying to justify the first 5, creating a decade of waste out of a 5-year error. This is the Concorde Fallacy, named after the supersonic jet that the British and French governments kept funding long after they knew it was a financial disaster, simply because they had already spent too much to stop. They didn't want to look stupid in front of the world, so they spent billions more just to prove they were right. In the United States, this fallacy costs corporations over $1 trillion annually in zombie projects that refuse to die. Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, warns us to cut your losses. He explains that staying in a losing battle for the sake of pride is a strategic suicide. Power belongs to those who can pivot. When you refuse to walk away, you are giving your enemies, and time itself, the power to destroy you. You are becoming predictable. You are becoming a target. The most powerful move you can make is the strategic retreat. You must be willing to sacrifice the queen on your board to win the war. Most people are so afraid of losing a pawn, they've moved 3 times, that they lose the entire game. George Orwell warned about the sunk cost of ideology. People will stick to a political party or a belief system even as it burns their house down, simply because they have invested their pride in it. They would rather perish in a lie than be saved by a truth that makes them look wrong. Jean-Paul Sartre talked about bad faith, mauvaise foi, the act of lying to yourself to escape the pain of absolute freedom. You tell yourself, it will get better, or I've come too far to turn back. This is the language of the victim, not the master. The master knows that too far doesn't exist in the calculus of the future. There is only now. If you wouldn't start this project today, from scratch, with a clean slate, then you have no business continuing it today. Every second you spend trying to recover a lost past is a second you are stealing from a potential future. You are standing in a dark room crying over a broken toy while a bright white door labeled exit is standing wide open right behind you. The longer you stare at the wreckage, the more of your life becomes a sunk cost. You have to be willing to look at a 10-year mistake and say that was a great lesson and walk away without looking back a single time. Niccolo Machiavelli observed that men are so simple that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. The person deceiving you the most is the person in the mirror. You are using your consistency as a shackle because you've been socialized to believe that changing your mind is a sign of weakness. In the USA, we worship the grind, but we never talk about the difference between a grind and a pit. A grind takes you somewhere. A pit just keeps you busy until you die. The elite don't grind in pits. They move, they pivot, they exit. They use what we call zero-based thinking to reboot their life every single night. They ask themselves, if I woke up today with nothing but my knowledge, would I choose this path again? If the answer is no, they burn the bridge before the sun goes down. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote in his Meditations that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But he also knew when a path was blocked by nature itself. He didn't waste the resources of the empire on a lost cause. He understood that our time is the only thing we truly own, and to spend it on a dead investment is to insult our own existence. You are frightened of the waste, but the waste has already happened. The money is gone. The time is gone. The reality is that you are free right now, this very second. but your imagination is keeping you tied to a corpse. True sovereignty is the ability to drop the stone you've been carrying for miles the moment you realize it's not gold. Arthur Schopenhauer argued that our will often blinds our intellect. Your will wants to be right so desperately that it forces your intellect to find excuses for why you should stay in a failing situation. You are literally hallucinating progress to avoid the pain of a pivot. In the USA, the sunk cost is often tied to the American dream fallacy. The idea that if you just work hard enough, anything will work. This is a dangerous lie. Hard work on a dead end just gets you to the wall faster. The elite understand opportunity cost. Every minute you spend on a sunk cost is a minute you aren't spending on an exponential gain. You are choosing a 0% return over a 1,000% return because you're afraid to let go of a penny that you've already dropped in the mud. Blaise Pascal noted that we are lost in the infinite. The sunk cost fallacy makes your world incredibly small. It forces you to look at a tiny patch of ground where you've already spilled your blood rather than the infinite horizon in front of you. To be sovereign is to reclaim the infinite, to say, this ground is empty, and to turn your back on it forever. Most people will finish this video and go right back to their comfortable misery. They will stay in that failing business. They will stay in that hollow marriage. They will keep trying until there is nothing left to try but regret. They are the guardians of the grave. They believe that if they just stay a little longer, the ghost will come back to life. It won't. But you have stayed until the end because you have felt the weight of the camel on your own back. You have realized that persistence is only a virtue if you are on the right path. On the wrong path, persistence is a death sentence. You are ready to stop protecting your mistakes and start investing in your potential. You are ready to burn the bridge to the past so you can finally see the road ahead. The elite don't look back, not because they are heartless, but because they are focused. They know that the most scarce resource in the universe is time, and they refuse to spend a single drop of it on a lie. Subscribe to join the intellectually sovereign. The bridge is burning. The future is waiting.